Okay, let's talk about learning a new language. Maybe you've tried before, hit a wall,
It happens.
time always gets in the way, or, the cost is prohibitive, or maybe you just haven't found a method that actually sticks, that clicks with how you learn.
Absolutely. It's a common challenge, right? The
Yeah.
traditional models, well, they really don't serve everyone.
Or fit into every single lifestyle or circumstance.
Exactly. Some approaches are just too rigid.
And that brings us neatly to the source material you've shared with us for this deep dive. It focuses on a specific language learning center called ILLTC.
Right.
So our mission, based purely on the text provided, is to really dig into what makes their approach tick. What are the core ideas? Who's it for?
And how do they claim to solve some of these classic language learning problems we were just talking about?
Yeah, exactly. What are the key nuggets here?
So we're going to unpack the details presented in this document, the methods they use, the tech they leverage.
Who they teach?
Right, the specific types of learners they seem to be catering to, and maybe the larger goal they state they're working towards. It's all about extracting those key bits directly from the text.
Okay, so right off the bat, the source tells us ILLTC operates with an international standard and curriculum for the languages they offer. That's French, Chinese, Arabic, specifically Modern Standard Arabic, MSA English, and Bengali.
Okay.
And a really highlighted point here is they are explicit.
Yeah.
They do not sell pre-recorded video lessons.
Which is fascinating, isn't it? That immediately signals their focus is somewhere else.
Right?
The text emphasizes their method is interactive, student-centric, and comprehensive.
Interactive and student-centric.
Okay. And when you see that alongside the fact that they cover the four key skills,
Yeah.
listening, writing, reading, speaking.
For all their languages.
Yes, it suggests a really dynamic learning environment. Even for something like Modern Standard Arabic, which the source calls elaborate, sophisticated,
Right.
and based on an international curriculum. They still integrate things like videos and animation, but it sounds like it's within this interactive framework, not just passive viewing.
And the source mentions the lessons use conversations based on real-world scenario.
Ah, okay.
So that it's not just theory. It sounds like they push you to actually use the language in, practical situations right from the start.
Exactly, which makes sense. And to make that kind of interactive approach work, especially for a potentially wide range of learners, well, they clearly lean on technology.
What kind of tech?
The document lists tools like modern learning apps, YouTube, Google Classroom, learning games apps, and other online platforms. Pretty standard stuff, but integrated.
Right. And here's where it connects directly back to those challenges we mentioned, like time and flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
The source highlights the big benefit. Learners get 24-hour access to learning materials, digital books, relevant audio, and apps.
Which is huge. And that round-the-clock access is positioned as supporting home-based self-learning beyond regular class time. Ah, okay. So the live interactive part is supplemented.
Seems like it. It suggests the formal lessons are supported by this wealth of resources learners can tap into whenever their schedule allows, on their own time.
The source uses a really interesting analogy to describe their overall learning style. It compares it to how a child learns language.
Oh, yeah. How so?
It says, like, starting with a limited set of circumstances initially, and then step by step with the passage of time and changing situations, the learning horizon broadens up.
Okay, I see. So that analogy frames their method as progressive. The text actually calls it simple and stress-free, yet effective.
Simple and stress-free.
Yeah, suggesting it mirrors that natural, cumulative way kids pick things up, building complexity gradually.
It sounds like they're trying to take the pressure off. Which makes sense given another main feature the source points out, inclusivity.
Ah, inclusivity. How?
The text says people from all over the world can learn languages here and specifically highlights serving the marginalized segment of the society. Okay, that's a strong claim. And how do they achieve that inclusivity according to the source?
Well, it explicitly states their focus is on being time and budget friendly.
Right. That seems key.
This seems to be the core mechanism for that inclusivity, directly removing two of the biggest barriers for so many potential learners, especially those with, limited resources or non-traditional schedules.
Makes sense. Time and money, the big two.
Let's connect this idea of flexibility and affordability to the specific target audiences the source brings up, because the text gives some really clear examples.
Okay, like who?
Think about a working person from a remote area facing financial and time constraints.
Right. Difficult situation for structured learning.
For that person, the source explains, ILLTC works because they don't just offer badge-based language teaching only on fixed schedule.
Ah, no fixed batches.
Exactly. They are budget-friendly, and learners can apparently choose any schedule and proceed. That level of flexibility seems absolutely crucial for someone not in a city center or maybe with a really rigid job.
Definitely. Or consider the busy office goer in a city or suburb.
Yeah.
They need something friendly and low cost that fits around a demanding work life, right? The source presents ILLTC as filling that exact niche.
Okay, so urban professionals too.
Yes, it addresses that time crunch. And then there's the example of a decent woman who is committed to her family all day long, but still has personal ambition. The source suggests she needs an effective way to learn a language, avoiding expensive and time-consuming methods. Again, that flexibility seems key for her too, letting her fit learning around family commitments.
What about younger learners? It mentions kids.
It does. In the Bangladeshi context specifically, the source mentions a child who might be overloaded with homework and other activities.
A common scenario.
Totally. So ILLTC positions itself as a child-friendly language learning institution that is safe and hassle-free, ensuring learning is age group-based, fun-filled.
Try to make it feel less like another chore, maybe?
Sounds like it. It's about meeting learners where they are, whatever their age or existing pressures.
It also mentions something for foreigners.
Yes, it highlights a unique opportunity to foreigners living in Bangladesh to learn Bengali and gain a comprehensive understanding of Bangladeshi society and culture.
So connecting language directly to cultural integration.
Which is a huge part of really mastering a language, isn't it?
Definitely. And they also make a specific effort, the text says, to help the migrant worker community build communication skills for assimilation.
And again, stressing the people-friendly and budget-friendly flexible learning schedule.
Right. So across all these different examples, the remote worker, the parent, the child, the migrant worker, that blend of accessibility really stands out from the source.
Cost, schedule, approachability.
Yeah.
Yeah. It certainly seems to be a foundational principle according to this text.
Okay, so that's who it's for and how it's accessible. What about the learning environment itself? Is it all individual?
No, actually, the source clarifies that ILLTC does not promote isolated learning.
Okay.
It champions a collective and interactive language learning process instead.
So group work is a core component then?
Seems like it. The text mentions group projects specifically aimed at developing social skills through using the language.
Right.
And class designs that emphasize group performance. However, and this is important,
Yeah.
the source is careful to state this collective focus does not limit individualized learning and opportunities to those with special needs.
Okay, so there's flexibility there too.
Exactly. They explicitly include a one-on-one class system as well. So while group learning might be the norm, they seem to build in that option for individual attention if it's needed.
That sounds like a good balance. What does the source tell us about the teachers, the people actually leading these sessions?
The text describes them pretty positively. Says they have adequate academic credentials, extensive training, and diverse experience.
Okay. Sounds qualified.
They're specifically called skilled online teachers with an impeccable track record from various international settings.
And are they equipped to handle all these different groups we just talked about? Kids, adults, different needs.
Yes, the source states they are equally adept at teaching all age groups.
Okay.
Plus, it mentions they are internationally certified examiner successors, meaning they're trained to actually evaluate language abilities and pinpoint specific weaknesses or areas for improvement, which is useful.
Definitely. Now, grammar. Always the big question, right? For many learners, grammar can feel like the necessary but painful part.
The broccoli of language learning.
Maybe.
Uh-huh.
Does the source explain how they handle that? Does it get ignored?
No, it addresses it directly. It says efforts to learn grammar are also not neglected.
But there's a but coming, I feel.
Well, they approach it differently, it seems. The source says because of an integrated approach to language learning, students do not feel stressed out while learning grammar.
Okay. So it's not taught in isolation, like just doing boring exercises.
That's what it sounds like. It's woven into the practical use.
How so?
The text mentions students work in groups on all language skills, engaging in guided conversations based on constructive thinking, and then reflecting this in written form as per respective level.
I see.
So it sounds like grammar is introduced and practiced within the context of actually speaking, listening, reading, and writing, rather than as a separate, maybe intimidating subject.
That makes a lot of sense. Potentially less stressful.
Yeah, integrated seems to be the key word there.
So if we pull together all these different elements described in the source, this interactive, tech-supported method, the progressive style, the big emphasis on accessibility and flexibility for all these diverse learners.
The qualified teachers, the integrated skills.
Right. What's the ultimate goal? What does ILLTC state they're actually working towards with all this?
The stated goal, according to the text, is quite ambitious. It's presented as creating a global citizen.
A global citizen. Okay. And according to the source, what does that term actually mean in the context of their language learning?
The text defines it as someone who is not only linguistically competent, but has the ability to understand world civilizations and cultures for a meaningful purpose.
Wow. Okay, so it goes beyond just speaking the language correctly.
Much beyond. It's about cultural understanding, context, and applying that knowledge purposefully, it seems.
Okay, so let's try and summarize this based purely on what the source says. ILLTC, according to this text, is building its whole language learning method around breaking down barriers.
Yeah, the big ones.
Yeah.
Cost, time, location.
And even maybe the stress or intimidation of traditional learning methods.
Right. And they seem to do this with a flexible, budget-friendly, interactive online approach.
Using modern tools.
And catering specifically to individuals who've historically struggled with access, like remote workers, busy parents, maybe children overwhelmed with other things, or migrant communities.
So the interactive progressive model, combined with that 247 access to materials.
It seems designed to make effective language acquisition actually possible despite all those real-world constraints people face.
It positions language learning not as some kind of luxury item or just a rigid academic thing.
But as something adaptable, maybe more democratic.
Conducive.
Inclusive, anyway.
Okay, so here's the final thought then. What does this all mean? If we connect this very practical, accessible method described in the source to their grander vision of cultivating this global citizen, someone who not only speaks a language, but understands world civilizations and cultures for a meaningful purpose.
Okay.
How does making the means of learning, the actual process, so widely available, especially as the source says, to those previously marginalized, how did that impact the ultimate goal? Does just increasing linguistic accessibility inherently foster that deeper cultural understanding and purpose on a global scale?
That's a really powerful idea to consider, isn't it? Does access automatically lead to that kind of understanding?
Something for you to think about.